أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على رسولنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وأتباعه وسلم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. So we studied Surah Al-Mursalat last week. Inshallah, we continue from where we were left. So it's a verse with short verses. It's a Meccan surah. And we studied the intro 6 verses last week. Wal-Mursalat urfa. Consider these sent forth one after another. فَالْعَاسِفَاتِ عَسْفًا, then violently storming. وَالنَّاشِرَاتِ نَشْرًا, spreading far and wide. فَالْفَارِقَاتِ فَرْقًا, thus separating with clarity. فَالْمُلْقِيَاتِ ذِكْرًا, and thus giving forth a reminder. عُذْرًا أَوْ نُذْرًا, ending excuses and giving warnings. And, main focus that we were discussing last time, as it starts with Mursalat, we ask what Mursalat is. So it was those that are sent, but one after the other. We ask who are sent one after the other, and we listed multiple options. Overall, the main theme was things that are sent to give us messages. This was the idea. But we start with the common interpretation of winds, and we were questioning whether winds just randomly happen or are they sent? Because since it's talking about those that are sent, there's this conscious, like if they are sent, then there's someone who sends. So we started questioning with something seemingly as random as winds. Are they really random? Then we expanded this to Revelation, the books, prophets. We talked about them being sent. We talked about inspirations that are being sent to human beings. We talked about events in life that are happening, like things happening to us. Was there something that I'm missing? I think I missed something. Anyways, we talked about multiple things that are being sent, and they are orphan. Another meaning of orphan was like one meaning is one that comes one after the other. Another one was they are familiar to you. Those that are being sent are familiar to you. And then فَالْعَاسِفَاتِ عَسْفًا, then violently storming. We continued here with like the other side of it. Like when it's like a wind, it's a slow wind. But عَاسِفَاتِ عَسْفًا, violently storming, like as it now starts shaking you. And the same thing could be applied to other things, like messenger comes with mercy, but the message that he brings might also shake you. Same with Revelation and everything that we mentioned. And then we talked about as they spread truth far and wide, the message that they bring in is being spread in the outside world, as well as within the minute corners of my humanity. My tiniest feelings are being addressed with those messages. فَالْفَارِقَاتِ فَرْقًا, thus separating right and wrong with clarity. فَالْمُلْقِيَاتِ ذِكْرًا, so giving this reminder. عُذْرًا أَوْ نُذْرًا, ending excuses and giving warnings. So we talked about this so far. And this, as we mentioned before and mentioned multiple times so far, should be setting the stage for what is going to come next. And everything explained in here should be self-evident to me. And whatever comes next, which is going to be not as self-evident, is going to be or expected to be supported by those intro 6 verses. And the verse that we didn't study and now we are studying, inshallah, is إِنَّمَا تُوعَدُونَ لَوَاقِعٌ, surely that which you are promised will happen. And then comes the other verses. Let's read them together and discuss them together. فَإِذَا النُّجُومُ طُمِسَتْ. So when the stars are put out or made dim. وَإِذَا السَّمَاءُ فُرِجَتْ. And when the sky is torn apart or split open. وَإِذَا الْجِبَالُ نُصِفَتْ. And when the mountains are blown away. وَإِذَا الرُّسُولُ أُقِّتَتْ. And when the messengers are brought unto their time appointed. So, tu'adun in here. إِنَّمَا تُعَدُونَ لَوَاقِعٌ. This is the statement that the surah was building upon. The intro was trying to convince us about this statement. So surely that which are promised will happen. So a few questions here. What is it that am I promised? When am I promised? Where am I promised of it? And what guarantees that the promise will be kept? Because it says, indeed, it's going to happen. So what are you promised?
At what point we were talking about the test?
Test.
So you're gonna have to take an exam.
Okay. So me being taken a test is what's promised to me? Okay.
What is uqita?
So it's waqt. So when they,
okay.
yeah. So, and in there, the translation, okay, let me briefly give you a background about verse 11. So many translations are saying that this refers to the time when messengers are going to, like in the day of resurrection, messengers are going to be called and like their ummas are going to be invited to meet with their messengers. This is the general interpretation that's being presented in tafasir. So وَإِذَا الرُّسُولُ أُقِّتَتْ, when the messengers are brought unto their time appointed. So that's the general meaning.
So that time back to like a time back to at the very beginning, this may be also understood as like talking about the Mursalat, right? The ones being sent down, and then kind of explaining them. So now describing the situation when whatever is being sent and what they carry out, it will be revealed in front of you. Like in such a situation, you will be able to see this Mursalat being Rasul.
Okay, or can we say that they are like, let's quickly remember the previous verses, see all of them. So they are sent to me one after the other, those messengers of all different types, like human messengers, revelation, events, life, everything is being sent one after the other. And I'm familiar with them. And sometimes shaking me, sometimes softly telling me and everything. So, but uqitat in this case is there's going to become a time in which now I'm going to, like, these messages are I'm going to be sort of held accountable. Or those messages are not simply, like, for example, the advertisements as you see in the 76 or 95 as you're driving, you just pass by them and they are messengers in there, but if you see them, good for them. If you don't see them, don't pay attention, you just pass by them. Like there's no time in which those messages are going to be become useful for you. They are just suggestive things in there. But when it comes to here, وَإِذَا الرُّسُولُ أُقِّتَتْ, so there's going to be a time in which what those messengers told you is going to become, then you will realize, yeah, it was for this moment. Like,
So it's like you're getting all these messages because you will die. This life is not for nothing.
mhm,
And then it keeps reminding you, shaking you, keeps reminding you. But then there will be a time that you will see that, okay, this is the reality.
so
And these situations described here is the time, the rocket, that you see all of its reality.
mm. And then in this case, if I generalize it to what classical tafsir say, like this is a time where those messengers will be gathered together in afterlife, and then they would say that, well, this is what we reported you. So what did you do now? Like it's now a time for accounting for every individual. So this message that has been sent to me, as Brother Birkan now said, becoming or inescapably becoming a reality for me. What is it that I am promised? So Atik says, I'm going to have a test. So can we then generalize this test to accountability? Okay. What else is this promised? What are you promised? And who promises? Where does he promise? When does he promise it? Because this verse is like, surely that which you're promised will happen. So once I hear this, after the first 6 verses, I should say, indeed, it will. Test will happen. How would I know if it is test? Repetitive messages indicates by itself that there must be a test. Okay.
It's the content of the message.
Anything else other than my atik today? People are silent. So then let's go with Atik's analogy. Let's say a student comes to college and starts taking a class. From day one, teachers start saying that this is syllabus, this is what you will see. Every week at the beginning of the lecture still reminds that due date for first assignment, second assignment, midterm is coming, final is coming, and whatnot. And all the lectures are wisely set up so that student is expected to learn. So what is promised in this case is, I will make sure you learned. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm putting all this effort so that you learn. If you don't learn, you're going to be held accountable. So the exam is coming. The orderliness of this existence in this case is saying that somebody keeps sending you messages every day. I think last time we used an example. Did we use an example about IRS or something? Like you keep receiving emails or mail from IRS saying that did you pay your taxes? And then at the end, your door will be knocked and said that, okay, here we are. We gave you all these warnings. Metaphor works well, but in real life, there are those messengers.
Another example, because when we talk about IRS, it's like somebody's robbing us, right? So people take it in the same way as if an external God just telling us that, oh, you have to worship, otherwise it's like a text from your life. Like when we moved to this new house, the inspector said you should fix the roof.
Hmm.
And then I say, after 8, probably later, and then after a while, let's say, another guys comes and look at the ceiling, says, oh, there are some coloring, you should check the roof. Otherwise, it will collapse, or you will get a lot of rain inside. I keep postponing it or ignoring all these signs, and then my roof goes. Goes bad. At that moment, when I put the bucket underneath the ceiling for dripping, is the maybe the work thing. Okay.
Then the things happening in my life is death is promised. But my desire for eternity is also asking that I'm not going to let you sleep in grave either. Like this, eternity is also promised to human by human desire. Because sometimes if I'm a person, like an evil person, I would like to do as bad as I can and hope that I'm not going to just wake up. So death is definitely appointed and promised for everyone, but resurrection is also promised for everyone. Like being held accountable in this case is also promised to everyone. How do I know? Within this feeling itself that eternity is promised to everyone. Would you agree with that? Like your desire for eternity, a life which never ends, would you consider it as a promise? And does this promise justify that it's going to be given? Can you take this as a proof that it's going to be given?
I was reading a passage from a famous scientist, and it's talking about why God does not exist based on some stuff, doesn't matter. And he talks about all these, natural laws, equations, the cosmological models, and so on and so forth. That does not exist. And the last thing says, and we will not be held accountable, or there won't be such thing as hereafter. And you see the psyche there. Everything he's trying to prove and so on and so forth, for just to denounce the sense of responsibility, sense of, as you said, the eternity. There's no connection between the two, but you see that this is the goal of this. And you see this pattern many times, like with most famous ones, articulate ones. Atheists, especially their scientists and so on, or philosophers. They always talk about this and that, why they don't believe, and then say that there won't be hereafter. That's always the ending sentence, as if, like, all their life, they have this news, as you said, the promise that there will be hereafter, there will be hereafter. They keep hearing it, and they have to silence it.
Yeah. So Natalia was asking, what does this mean? How would I take my feelings as a guarantee that the promise will be fulfilled? She is asking. Did I understand wrong? And that's what you're saying. So, Jazakallah khair, good question.
You didn't say I don't think.
Yes. So, because this, we talked about all these messages that were mentioned before. Those messages keep coming to me. So what is it that I'm promised? If whether we frame it as a test or whatever, what it actually means is I do live a life, but this life must have consequences. It's not for nothing. It's not just for tasting it and that's it. It's the end. So those messages are being sent to me from someone so that I'm going to understand something with it and do something with it. So the existence of the messages that are coming and they are having a matching in me, like they have an impact on me, is a testimony that this must be for some use, of some use. But I am dying. On the other hand, I have this feeling of I don't want to die. I'm not being satisfied with temporariness in the first place either. And this is perfectly making sense with them being messages. So by human's nature, your nature testifies that I am not made to die and become nothing. As if my maker, by putting this desire for eternity in me, tells me the promise that I'm going to give you eternity. But is this a strong evidence? Is a question. If I take it as my feeling, no, it doesn't. But if I take this feeling itself as a message, another messenger that's being sent, like, question, where does your feelings come from? So this desire for eternity in me, being put in me, is an invitation, is a testimony. The one says, the feeling that bothers you, that you're not satisfied with anything that's temporary, that's a intentionally put feeling, a message in you to say that I'm going to keep you accountable. Actually, I am training you in this life so that you learn, so that you prepare, and life will continue. This is the promise.
So because this is important, we keep talking about that on Fridays as well. Like you have such feelings and you're trying to make sense of them and so on. I guess the natural question becomes, as Natalia articulated, but most of the time I cannot make sense of my feelings, or I cannot, sometimes I misunderstand them and so on and so forth. And I guess that's the situation. Otherwise, at least the way I understand, the claim here is not that if you are just honest to yourself, listen to your feelings, and they will explain you everything. You will know what is being promised. By itself, the human feelings, like human thoughts, what we study, how we study nature and so on, when they put together, they will only have the kind of the chaotic, like a situation, right? We will have this, on one hand, we will have this desire for eternity. On the other hand, we see that everything dies, right? It's like a conflict in us, a fight. And then we have this feeling of trying to make sense of everything. And then we see almost everything is pointless from a, let's say, materialist perspective. So we find ourselves in a situation, what is going on? When we read the book of nature or the universe, and then book of ourselves by themselves in isolation, we cannot make sense of them. We need an interpreter of them. And this interpretation comes from the Revelation, the book of Revelation. Only when we put them all together, we can understand what is being promised. Without the revelation, without the guidance of prophet, we only know that I have such desires. I know that they are calling in somewhere, but what I see is a conflicting, dark gray. Nothing else. So I need revelation to come, illuminate my life, and say that, yeah, Natalia, you've been having this discomfort, tension between what you want, what is the reality in front of you, as if I'm here to explain it to you. Then everything dying makes sense. You having the sense of eternity makes sense. All come together and make sense through the light of revelation.
Then the intro verse was mentioning Mursalat, so multiple messages are being sent. So revelation is being sent, prophets are being sent, inspirations, feelings are being sent, events are happening. All of them point to this point that this is not for nothing. And when you die, you're not just going to go and rest in there in peace. No, this is for a purpose. This is just, if you like, the first portion of your life, and this would continue. It doesn't stay there. So, so when the stars are put out, and when the sky is torn apart, and when the mountains are blown away. So what does this imagery indicate, and how is it related in this context? Again, this is reminding us of a day of resurrection, but stars are put out, sky is torn apart or split apart, and the mountains are blown away. And messengers are brought unto their time appointed. Anything you would like to add? We have seen these sort of imagery before, but in this context, the messages keep coming and coming, and then they're going to become clear to me when stars are put out, sky is torn apart, mountains are blown away. What does this mean? Once you hit the dust, you will see it.
I think these distinct prediction contrast with other fixed stars, constellation, how beautiful sky is balanced. Right? So I guess it's, indication of something.
So stars are probably one of the most constant thing, at least in terms of their light. They're out there, so remote and distant and so mighty, if I go with the literal sense of the stars. And then sky being torn apart, like as if it is depicting me of my death. Because when I die, all of these are going to happen for me. Even if they stay, I am being torn apart. But also it, in a sense, can we read it a little further? Like other than my death, because when death happens, I go to afterlife, and in the afterlife, prophets are now going to be there, and I'm going to be held accountable before them. They would say, we did what we are supposed to do. We delivered the message, but what did you do? So that is for afterlife, and it must be a correct understanding, fine. But how can I bear witness to this truth right now? Messengers being brought before me, and me realizing truthfulness of their message when I am here. So what would stars being put out, sky being torn apart, mountains being blown away could mean in this case? Because mountains are the most solid things, or at least signify solidness. So what does it mean that a mountain is going to be blown away? In the previous surah, we were referring to this as, what was it? Like, will be thrown away like carded wool. When mountains are thrown away like carded wool. So, in my understanding, once I start, can I read it as such? Once I realize that the things that I consider to be so strong, as in any material thing, material perspective, once this idea starts being torn apart before my eyes, these are the things that I rely on: my degree, or my wealth, my health. These are the things that I rely on, which makes me feel like there's no afterlife or anything. I'm just not focusing on this side of anything. Life is life. I am focusing on this. But once these start crumbling, once my health starts crumbling, or my intellect, which are like the stars, I feel like, oh, it's enlightening the darkness to me. Maybe it's not like sun, it's enlightening every corner, but every now and then I have those sparks of brilliant, bright ideas, but they are starting to get dim. An event happens in life, then I realize I'm not able to come up with a bright idea anymore. Yesterday, we were talking about something happening in like a certain friend was having some hard time. We couldn't find anything to say that, well, maybe we should try this to help that friend. So you realize that you're at the end of the road. Like, what do you do? Just imagine this is happening to yourself. In your life, no light is happening, helping. At this moment, once I come to the end of the road, then I remember message of the messengers, the time appointed of the messengers.
Yeah, I took my car to mechanic for inspections. And I'm sitting in the waiting lobby. The guy passed by waving other workers, like probably he was a director or something. The service department. He went out, and I'm thinking that he's the director of the car service. He's there, I don't know, in his 50s, maybe 60s. And I'm asking myself, like, this service thing can end any moment. And he will be jobless if this happens. What would he do next? Right? Because like the type of service he's providing, he wouldn't have many other options. Right? So can you invest your life to such a job, such a position? I'm thinking. But at the same time, on parallel, I'm asking the same thing to myself. Is my job provides me, eternity in this, like an eternity in the sense, like, am I going to have the same job? Can I keep the same job until I'm 60s, 70s? Or what happens if I get fired at my 50 something? Can I find another job? And this, the transience of my job hurt me. So as Nursi says, like when we look at the outside world, we see that things are not changing much, kind of solid, and we fool ourselves that our life also so solid, robust, but with a tiny change, our life is actually being shaken.
Upside down.
Upside down, exactly. And now in this ayah, it is also being said, the outside world you think is robust and solid, it is not, reminding us, which shakes people like a person like myself, for instance. Like if you remind me how easily I could lose my job and I couldn't find another job after a certain age, it gives me a huge, misery. Just reminding me how everything is not that solid.
Actually, this reminds me of a conversation that I had with a student today. So in the classes chat channel, the student was just asking a casual question, saying that in the syllabus, it says that last week's topic is hard problems, how hard they are. And I joked saying that the world has many real problems out there, like the computer science problems are not that hard at all. At worst, you're going to get an F. Don't worry about it. Then he emailed me saying that, can we talk about some things? He didn't mention what things are. I said, okay, I'm excited to hear what those things are. It's very mystical. So he comes to my office today and he says, why did you choose CS? So apparently he's up to something. So I just needed to quickly reciprocate the question so that he talks. I don't know what he is up to. I said, well, I like solving problems. How about you? So he says, I chose because I wanted to develop games. I really liked playing games. I said, why? So he says, I would like to give some break to people because they are so upset by the things that are happening in life and whatnot. But now he realizes that that's not going to satisfy him. And he says job market is not good either because he is applying for co-ops and there is no paid jobs for game developers. So he says, I'm too late to change lanes anyways. I came to CS for this reason and family is not rich at all. So I got stuck here. So what do I do? So life, like if, I mean, it's just a simple case, I guess, but his life at this moment is just, he feels numb. What do I do? Because I was doing it apparently for some, what's it, meritorious feeling of making people feel a little better. He says, even if a few minutes, if I can take them out of their boredom, their problems, it would be a win. But now his life ends up being a lie. But human cannot accept this. Like human cannot go and say that, well, yeah, man, I mean, it's just nonsense. Just get away with it. I am not able to get away with it. So this is the part that this is the disturbance he is feeling. Like he feels like it should not have been like this. It shouldn't have ended like that. So I think this is the part that that brings him to this questioning, saying that it was supposed to be something else. This is the part that the promise is there. Like human is sensing this promise. The existence shouldn't be meaningless. And if it is, if what I have in front of me is the reality, then it's meaningless and it's very disturbing. So at this moment, when stars go off, as in his case, job market is bad, and then like mountains are blown away, sky is torn apart, then those messengers who came one by one, and I used to ignore them, is showing up. I keep remembering them and I say, well, this was not supposed to be the case in my life.
So this solidity of world, like how sky is there always, mountains are there always, and so on. I think it's so important that, like reading another thing from another person, he was saying, like just because this law of gravity is there, the universe can, come to existence out of nothing. The point is, there's this solid reference point for him. The law of gravity. That's enough for me. Right, from his, like I'm trying to read his psychology. Everything is so solid, the gravity will always be there. So I have something to rely on, and I don't need anything else. And the ayah says, even things that is full of gravity, it's nothing. It will come to end.
And since these verses are asking when stars are put out, when the sky is torn apart, I can also extrapolate and see that this is something likely to happen. Like what keeps mountain together? What keeps sky intact? What keeps stars as they are? Because I take those very much for granted. And once I question this, actually, at the moment, they can get torn apart before my eyes as well. Like then, if you feel the fragility of your work, of your job, it will then virtually become blown away in your eyes. Yeah.
Because most of the time we witness stars themselves, or what we consider to be stars, to be constant, but then one day they fall apart. Are we being tricked?
What do you mean by tricked?
We're being taught that, oh, these things are safe, and then one day they're not safe. Is that a trick? Just playing games?
I mean, it's a message. I mean, if this is so, I mean, probably didn't get your point.
So I think like I know he's trying to cover it with the smile and so on as if it's a joke, but I think this is serious.
Okay.
And I think it makes sense. Like when you take again what you feel, what you see in isolation, that you rely on things, your parents, for instance, and then they are distracting. That you cannot rely on. As if somebody is giving you something to rely and then taking it away constantly, as if making fun of it. Like, is that a joke? Is the question, right? So I think it makes perfect sense, like to ask, just like Natalia asked, right? Take your feelings and experiences in isolation, they wouldn't make sense. They would only disturb you, they would only make you question what is the point. And then revolution will come and say that I was giving you this experience and then creating sense of security to show you that this is what you want. You want security. That's one conclusion. Revelation explains. And then Revelation explains whatever you try to, the hold on in this reality, it won't work because they are not permanent. That's the second, the conclusion. And whoever is giving you this sense of security and taking away these false idols, he will provide you the actual security. That's another promise of the revelation. Now it starts making sense. And you say that, oh, I'm glad that they were temporary, that I couldn't rely on them, so that I found the actual source that I can really rely on. Mm-hmm. So it's not a game, actually, the perfect design so that you will be led to the right direction.
Mm-hmm. So this false sense of solidness of a mountain was given so that I realize that it's not satisfying me.
Yes.
So that I seek the true solid source, in a sense, the true source which is never going to blow away. So, and when the messengers are brought unto their time appointed. So in this case, with all those messages, I should ask the question then, today in my life, where I place those messengers. Which, I mean, if you don't mind, I'm going to now specifically go with human messengers and spend a few minutes on that. So, messenger bringing revelation, and how do I take that message serious for my life at the moment? Or more generally, more directly, in your life today, where does your prophets, and here I'm specifically referring to Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, where does his message sit in your life today? For today, I mean, specifically today is 19th of November. So how could this message be useful, or did you benefit from this message today, the time of this message coming to your life? How real is that? So I have to wait for a horrendous life events happen, or how can I take this message serious so that I find the utility of this message and messenger in my life today? أي يوم أجلت For what day are these postponed? ليوم الفصل, for the day of decision. وما أدراك ما يوم الفصل, and what will convey unto you what the day of decision is. ويل يومئذ للمكذبين, how horrible is that day for the deniers of truth. So Quran has been mentioning messengers. And if we look at many of the stories of prophets, they're always coming with a news of a day that will come to the people, a reminder for that. And people say that, okay, bring this day. So as if there's a postponement of the day, and those people are challenging the messenger for the day that will come. This is the general theme. Like, think about Nuh alayhi salam's case, think about Moses' case, who else? Salih alayhi salam's case. They come with a message, warn people saying that, like, here's the message, worship one creator. They cover up the truth, deny the truth, and then further said that, okay, you just made it too long, bring the day. So it's a day that's being postponed. So now the messenger's message is being accumulated, and in this day of decision, everything is going to be made clear. So how shall I take these verses? Like, what does this signify to me? What does it say? We are almost 1/3 into the surah now. It talked about messengers being sent. It talked about thing that I'm promised to be coming. It talked about when the sky, mountains, everything split apart, blown up, torn away, torn apart, blown away. And when the messenger's appointed time is going to come, which was delayed. And this is going to be the day of decision. لأي يوم أجلت. So, yes. Yep. Mm. So, okay, let's talk about this. Reaching of eternity. I think time to time we talk about this. But for a believer, reaching to the conclusion, does the believer need to wait until the end to see the consequences? Like, when the message comes, if a person accepts, confirms what the messenger is telling, the message already takes the person to somewhere. There's no postponement. You immediately come to the conclusion. You start getting in contact with your sustainer, your provider. Like the news of a message comes and you immediately put it into practice, meaning it says, you have a merciful creator. And I say, do I really have a merciful creator? I check it for my life. I check it for the existence, I see the revelation, and the moment I confirm there must exist a merciful creator, I start feeling this contentment in me. So I already get immediate feedback of getting to this conclusion. But if I deny this, and I pretend as if it doesn't exist, the pain starts kicking in, but I am trying to live a life in which there's no merciful one, there is like no meaning, no nothing. But then at a point, I am becoming this bold and saying, okay, there's nothing, and I'm living a life as such. So in this case, for the first person, akhirah is always right there. So it's not being delayed, or in this case, it's always accessible. لأي يوم أجل يوم الفصل وما أدراك ما يوم الفصل ويل يومئذ للمكذبين. So how do you know what this day, or do you know, in a sense, let's use it in the way it's supposed in English. Do you know what it is? It is such a day that for the one who covers up the truth, it's going to be a horrible day for them. Just to highlight the importance of this being called to accountability. So, ألم نهلك الأولين? Did we not destroy the earlier ones? ثم نتبعهم الآخرين. Then made the followers to follow it. Like the others that followed, that came after, followed them. They also got destroyed. كذلك نفعل بالمجرمين. This is how we do with the wrongdoers, the guilty ones. ويل يومئذ للمكذبين. So how horrible are the deniers of truth experienced in that day. So what does this portion indicate then? Those awwalin are destroyed, the formal fork is destroyed, the followers are destroyed, and this is how we deal with mujrimin, the guilty ones. What does this indicate to you? There's this sense of many people come before, people are coming after, like, and I take some sort of a, I don't know, contentment, or seek for some sort of a contentment that others are going through what I'm going through. What is this helping me? Like in this case of when everybody dies, man, at the end of day, why bother? Is this giving you any real contentment? Is this the general sense? Like, it's a bad economy, everybody's hungry, so what? Sometimes we take this sort of a condolences. Like, I mean, relatively speaking, I am doing as bad as anybody else is doing. But is this a satisfactory answer? So we destroyed the ones that are coming before you. The ones that come after them also got destroyed. So this transitoriness is coming after you. Every moment that you lived is being destroyed. instance. And gives the example of those people, like nations who did wrong and they got destroyed. So what do I learn from that? How is this going to be a guidance for me? What does this say? They didn't heed the message and they got annihilated. They paid for their mistakes. And with the following verses, it locates me in between. أَلَمْ نَخْلُقكُم مِّن مَّاءٍ مَّهِينٍ فَجَعَلْنَاهُ فِي قَرَارٍ مَّكِينٍ إِلَى قَدَرٍ مَّعْلُومٍ فَقَدَرْنَا فَنِعْمَ الْقَادِرُونَ. Did we not create you from a base fluid, which we laid up in a safe abode for a known term? Thus we determined how excellent is our determining. وَيْلٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ لِّلْمُكَذِّبِينَ. So those that came before went, that came after went, if they didn't pay attention to the message. And we created you from something very insignificant. We made you grow in a secure place, which some interpreters consider this as womb of a mother. Then we created you in measures, yet how bad it is for those who deny the truth. So then can we read all these as parts of messages that has been like you are living a life? Just look at your creation. You being created from something so insignificant, stage by stage, being given shape just physically or with all your feelings. Then with every event in your life being shaped specifically for you if you pay attention to whatever you're going through in life. Yet I am turning a blind eye to all these and denying all these messengers, saying that this doesn't mean anything. These are pointless, these are just random. Because at the beginning it started with the winds, and in last week's discussion we were questioning whether winds are random or not. So now, are you a random happening coming from this insignificant water, becoming a human being, full-blown human being? And again, among the events of winds of life, is it just randomly happening or specifically things are happening for you? How come you are denying the truth?
Even light, right? Because it's not just closing your ears and eyes. You see something and you just tell the opposite.
Because in all those prophetic stories, it's always they said to prophets, you are liars. Those messengers bring a message and they say you're nothing but a man like us, like human, bashar like us. You're liars. There's no message. Rahman doesn't send any messenger. Like this is the attitude. And now in this case, it's as if saying that those that were annihilated before you was a message for you. Didn't you see this? You being brought in the specific case is a message for you. Don't you see this? Like, do you just happen to be like that? So it reminds me of, like, if I go somewhere, and it happens a lot, I take it for granted. They have to treat me well, as if it was not my choice. Somebody needs to treat you well. If they don't treat you well, you get offended. But was it not by choice in the first place? You being born by a water, like insignificant water droplets, was it a choice? Or was it just have to happen like that? Is it a deliberate choice? Or is it a random act? we have this sense. I remember having this conversation with a friend once. In this existence, do you observe choice? Because I said for a thing to come into existence, there needs to happen power, there needs to happen knowledge, and then there needs to happen a choice with which is choosing it to happen. He said, yes, power is needed, because when I look at a tree coming out of a seed, yes, the power is being manifest. Knowledge, it's happening with the knowledge. I said, there's no choice. It has to happen. Do you observe choice in this existence? Creator says, like in the Revelation, Creator says, when we will something to happen, we say, be, and it is. Do you observe this? Can you confirm this reality? Like it's a sentence in Quran, but how do you bear witness to this? Can you bear witness to this? God says, kun, and then it happens. These verses, especially the, like in all of them, the action are being attributed to the Creator. Like it's not saying that, oh, such and such nation just made it too much, and then another nation attacked them and destroyed them. No, it says we destroyed them. Or they messed up with the nature so much, and then global warming happened, or a flood happened, and then they die. No, the Creator says we destroyed them with a flood. We destroyed them with, I don't know. It's always the Creator is saying, I did it. It was not a natural consequence of events. Let it be social level natural consequence of events, nor whatever somebody would call as natural events, calamities. You observe choice of the Creator in the existence. Everything is happening with a choice. This is what إلى قدر معلوم فقدرنا فنعم القادرون. So we determined how excellent is our determining. Do you observe determining in this existence? In a single leaf, do you observe this determining? Or like even when a simple chemical reaction happens, this much hydrogen comes, this much oxygen comes, and then water happens. It is happening within a measure. Like 2 hydrogen, 1 oxygen. Does it have to happen like this? Or it is happening by someone always choosing it to happen like this? Because it's happening, it could have been 5 oxygen, 2 hydrogen, or something else. But it always happens in this way. It's a deliberate choice that is taking place right there. Likewise, you were not an accident, and you didn't have to be. You are made by a choice. How can you deny this truth? How can I turn a blind eye to this message? Somebody is deliberately choosing me to happen in this way. And turning a blind eye to all these makes me abandon all these messengers actually. So Quran in this case is reminding me of these one after the other messages coming to me, saying that how come you turn a blind eye to these? And then because of all these telling that you are lying, you don't have any message, you're not messenger. This is the main point, I think. What is the lie here? Saying that you are not messengers, which means life is meaningless, purposeless. None of them are messengers. This lie is putting me into a very horrible position in this Yamul Fasl. Because then I am living a life in total darkness. Denying messengers puts me in a world in which it is total darkness. There's no light in my world. So let's conclude here, inshallah, and continue from here next week, verse 25. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعواهم أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. الفاتحة.